What's going on, everybody? KG here. Now, one of the first things I like to do when I load up two TVs is I like to load up the Spears & Munsell UHD benchmark disc. And to compare, I'm going to be using filmmaker mode out of the box because that is going to be the fairest way to do it, in my opinion. We'll also take a look at game mode. Now, there's a hot topic amongst the TV community the last couple of years. Edge enhancement, clarity, what things should look like. You know, that's a really tough subject. There's going to be people that want the most pure look, right, in terms of the presentation that's in front of you. I do think that we're going on a path where we're talking about picture clarity becoming almost to the sense of where we are with brightness. And I'm looking at the LG G5 and I'm seeing that across the board, this mountain is sharp in so many areas. And I feel like it's clinically sharp. A lot of clarity within the picture. So it does make the image stick out a little bit more. It makes it more three-dimensional because of that reasoning. Now, it's pretty funny because this seems to be similar to what Sony does. And while the Sony's not in the comparison, we're not talking about this right now. This actually is going to be sharper than what like a Sony delivers for this particular scene. And I'm looking at the Sony right now, and this will be the last time I bring the Sony up, I promise. You know, I think the Sony and the Samsung actually look really similar on this demonstration. So it's clear LG is trying to do something else entirely. Another thing that is very noticeable right off the bat with the LG is how bright it can come across with its tone mapping. And I think this is really interesting to look at. I mean, maybe in some cases it doesn't even need to tone map the image because it does have so much capability. The Samsung is almost just as capable, yet this image is still looking brighter and more impactful on the LG G5. I've got a good feeling that the LG is maybe a little bit too blue or too green. Now, a lot of this video might be a little bit of a rambling session, so bear with me, but when it comes down to the G5 and the picture clarity, I think this deer really does stand on its own. If I had to pick one, it would definitely be the LG, and it's mainly because how the white is popping out here in this scene, how the snow is coming alive off of the deer's fur, and then there also seems to be more levels to the deer's fur. And this is the back and forth thing that I really don't know how to explain to you. A lot of the scenes on this demo disc, they do look very similar, and there's only subtle differences, again pointing to the tone mapping, maybe the clarity aspect. And I don't necessarily think it's because Samsung has worse processing than LG, but a lot of people may frame it that way. I just think they have different approaches. LG certainly has a different type of algorithm they're going for. It almost looks like LG applies a global sharpening to the image, which is attacking the whole entire image, making it look like it's sharper across the board. Like if you took a sharpening filter and you raised it up, that's what I get the feeling with the LG. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly what's going on, but it does feel like it hits the whole entire image, where other edge enhancement techniques feel like they only hit the edges of areas on the image, and it's really an algorithm-based thing. Like Sony does, for example. Sony implies a technique called reality creation in some of their picture processing, and this is going to really do the edge enhancement for them. And it's not a global sharpening filter. It doesn't hit the whole entire image. I think Samsung does a similar thing, but LG has something that is definitely really aggressive, that is noticeable, that does kind of make it feel like it pops out a little bit more than the other two TVs, which is a big reason why the G4 for me was so eye-catching last year. It just popped out, and the same thing is happening this year with the G5. But I will say that the gap has closed a little bit with the S95F in mind, and it's going to be really close, I believe, between these two TVs on which one you'll prefer. Now, one thing we do see is that the color brightness of these TVs The LG is not falling apart like it usually is, but it's not on the same level as the Samsung. And that is for sure. You're still going to see some of the struggles with certain colors. I will say that it's the best WOLED that I've seen in terms of color reproduction and holding color at the top level. While the Samsung certainly does look like the brighter image here, I don't think people are going to complain very much on what the G5 is going to be giving you here. Again, this is a lot better than what we have seen from LG in years past, so that's good. The C5 certainly fell apart on this scene, and it does look pretty close until you really examine and you see that the Samsung is certainly the brighter one still. That yellow is brighter on the Samsung in terms of color brightness. So you do still see a QD-OLED advantage here, but it's not as huge as it once was when it comes down to WOLED. So this new 4-stack that the G5 has certainly does help it with the color. In the past, LG couldn't quite replicate this color here on the scene, and now it looks like it's a lot closer. Again, here, this is where you saw a huge advantage. Now it looks a lot closer. So it certainly does look like, while the S95F does still have the upper hand in terms of color brightness, and the G5 will still lose color brightness at very extreme levels, it's just not going to be that much of a factor for people to like skip the G5 because of that reasoning. You know, like if you like everything about the G5 but that's your reasoning for skipping it, I don't know that that's going to be a reason for you to skip it for the most part, as most content you won't see that QD-OLED difference. In terms of the color banding, the gradients on the LG G5 certainly look pretty smooth for the most part from what I'm seeing. When it comes down to which alligator looks best to you, I'll let you guys decide. You know, I like to do this. It's called the alligator test. People seem to love this image. It's just a matter of how the image is being tone mapped. It does feel like when it comes down to this. Now here's yellow that actually looks decent on the G5, where in the past, this is a problem area. Not quite as good as QD-OLED still, but definitely better. See, like when we're talking about sharpness and clarity and things like that, you can talk about all of those things, and then you'll see an image like this where they look one for one, basically almost the same. You know, I'm not really sure what's going on behind the scenes. I can only guess what these TV manufacturers are doing with each TV and how much of it is a placebo based around how they're tone mapping the image. I don't know. I couldn't tell you that. That's in regards to HDR. Both of these TVs look really good. I'm not seeing any errors that just bug me. Anything that is just jumping off the page from that demo that makes me say, wow, they need to fix this. Nothing like that. And in respect to the color brightness bug that was going on with the S95F and the S90F, I was told that the S95F really won't experience this issue unless you fix the EOTF, and the only reason you would do that is if you got your TV calibrated or you knew exactly what you were doing. Magenta is a color where QD-OLED is going to look better. Cyan is a color where QD-OLED is going to look better. Yellow is a color where QD-OLED is going to look better. So there's color brightness advantages for QD-OLED as well as color purity advantages for QD-OLED. With the 4-stack, the WOLED can't quite replicate this, but in most content, you don't see it become an issue. I'll nitpick it. I'll show you the difference, but the reality is it's not going to impact most people. And maybe you can't see this on video, but I'll just explain it to you. I do see more sharpness, more clarity within his suit. I can make up more fine details, edges and lines in his suit compared to what the Samsung S95F is delivering. The softer look on the Samsung in this image is definitely the case, and the Bravia 8 Mark II looks the same as the Samsung in this shot. So I do think we're looking at some sort of global sharpness that's being applied here on the G5. I could be entirely wrong though. That could be an algorithm thing that just triggers at the right spots. I'm going to take you to shots like this within Aquaman, and I'm noticing more of a neutral tone from the Samsung. The white light is actually, it looks like it's daylight to me, where the light from the G5 here in the top right, that's definitely shifting towards a bit of a green or a blue. And that is something that I do notice with the G5, is that it does feel like there is a little bit of that cast on it, like I've explained with previous LG TVs. As I pause, you can kind of see, hopefully, maybe you can't. I'll have both TVs white balanced in post here, so you can hopefully see what I see, that there's a little bit more depth. There's more definition around it, but also there's this green blue cast that I've been talking about with these TVs. And you just can't shake it. It's there. It feels like a tint. It very much does feel like a tint. There's no doubt about it. Both of these TVs are certainly bright TVs, so I don't think you'll have a problem with either in that respect. If you are enjoying this content so far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you're enjoying this video. It's going to go a long way in helping grow the channel, so thank you guys so much for your support. Now let's continue on with the rest of the video. The out-of-the-box color for both of these TVs just seems really good. Other than there's a green push on the LG, that's my only real complaint. I like the colors. I think they're both great on both TVs. Just looking at these cars here, they almost look like the same TV at times. Even the skin tones, they're so close. I really like the way they look. I feel like I'm just splitting hairs with this comparison for sure. And it comes down to which look do you prefer, because they both give a real three-dimensional image. I would say the edge goes to the G5 in that respect, but not by a ton, and it's not always in every scene. But it's just that little fine detail that does come across that makes me say, wow, that's the G5. It looks great. I'm going to sound like a broken record in this comparison, I'm sure, saying they're both really good. I truly do mean it. I don't think either of these TVs are bad at all. Now, really quick, on the topic of the color bug, I've talked about this in the past. The S95F has a color luminance issue, but the color luminance issue is only going to be a problem if you correct the EOTF on the TV. So if you're not touching your settings at all, and you're just getting the TV and you're putting it in filmmaker mode out of the box, then you're really not going to have any problems with the color luminance, which all my comparisons out of the box so far have been no settings adjustments at all. They're just straight up out of the box settings. And I really haven't seen the S95F be hindered out of the box because of this. So let's go ahead and put it in the game optimizer mode. Now I will be using modified settings because the out of the box settings for both of these TVs is absolutely terrible in game mode. So you have to make tweaks. Okay. And so, but these tweaks aren't really hard to make, and these are tweaks you can easily make on your own. And I highly recommend doing them. I'll have them in a separate video. If you look, you might see that video is already up. If it's not, it will be up eventually. All right, when automatically you'll realize that, QD-OLED is going to do these flames in a more impactful way. Now, switching between game optimizer and filmmaker mode, we're getting a little bit more intense flames. There's a little bit of a luminance difference. It's not dramatic though. One thing I do want to test is the image retention. So let's go ahead. I also use the flames for this. So I'm going to pause here for a second. And so while I'm paused here, I'll just explain what image retention is. So image retention in this case is temporary image retention, and this is going to leave an outline of the brighter image on the screen that you sit on for a very long time. So this could be like you're in the UI changing your character up in the game that you're playing, or you could just be staring at a fireplace like this for a very long time, and then when you suddenly move your controller to go to a new area, you'll see an outline All right, we've been looking at this flame for a bit. Now let's see who has the image retention. Okay, S95F has a slight outline of the image retention, and you can see hopefully that the G5 has a huge outline of the image retention for where the flames were. Weird, because I thought the G5 having a heatsink and all would do good here. I don't know if the camera will be able to pick it up totally, but we'll do this with a white box as well. All right, now let's get out of it. And yeah, you can see the white box quite clearly. It's quite a noticeable box outline. That's something where, again, I just want to caution you that it could get in the way. It could get annoying when you're playing games. Oh my gosh, it's in out of the box SDR. That's not great. Goodness, everything is blue. Let's go ahead and fix that. Still a little blue. But that's kind of like the characteristics of the G5 so far, what I've observed. So I don't want to spoil anything with this game, so I loaded up my new playthrough. Alright, so here's the G5 and the S95F after being configured a little bit. Both of them is peak brightness set to high. Right now it looks like the Samsung is certainly the brighter one in SDR, at least for this particular area. Okay, let's load up one more SDR title here. SDR here also. SDR game mode looks brighter, man. On the S95F for sure. SDR game mode is... I'm a little shocked by that, given how close HDR is. But maybe they purposely limit SDR brightness. I don't know. Let's try another game with some bright UI elements. So G5 is definitely doing a lot better here than it was in the other games, which is pretty interesting. Definitely feels like the winner of SDR is the S95F for game mode. And HDR is probably the winner to the S95F as well because of the color brightness. In shots like this, for example, you will see the S95F does look like the more impactful, brighter in this scene because of the color luminance and the way that the TV is choosing the tone map here. And this is certainly a very high graded demo. And so the S95F definitely dominates on this scene. So for example, I showed you an image where it's brighter on the Samsung. Well, here's an image where it's brighter on the LG. And again, this is a very highly graded demo. And you can see the LG is just taking this scene and it's bringing it to life. So, but this is a rare case. And in a lot of cases, you aren't going to be watching content like this. You're going to be watching movies and TV shows. And in that case, they're very similar. And I would just choose which one appeals to you most based on the features, based on the remote, based on the OS, just based on the living experience altogether, because they're going to be similar in their actual picture quality and their performance in terms of the capability that they're delivering. Very bright across the board. There's no doubt about it. In terms of the eye appeal, I struggle between giving it to the S95F or the G5. For me personally, I think I prefer the G5 for the eye appeal. Even though my favorite TV technology is QD-OLED, I have to respect what the LG G5 is doing with the pure luminance that it's outputting here. It definitely takes it to a different level that I haven't personally seen with TVs, and I was already blown away with the S95F. So to see the LG G5 push it even beyond that in certain cases with the white luminance, it's definitely cool to see. So all in all, they trade blows for sure, and at times the LG G5 does look like the brighter TV overall, but the S95F does win in the color brightness category. However, the LG G5 doesn't seem to be impacted as much as it has been in the past in this category. But at very high luminance, it still does lose color, and it still won't be able to get to the same level of color as the S95F due to it being a QD-OLED. So QD-OLED still is going to have its advantage in color brightness and color purity, so the LG G5 is at a disadvantage there. But it makes up for it with the pure brightness capability, as it does seem to demonstrate higher luminance in a lot of different cases when I've tested it. I think both TVs are fantastic. It really depends on what your preference is, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Which one is your favorite? Which one would you pick? I would love to hear your guys' answers. And if you guys want to keep watching comparisons just like this, please make sure you watch these right here. If you're interested in any of these TVs, please consider using my affiliate links if you are buying them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.